January 3rd, 2026, 0200 hours. The airspace over Caracas is supposedly the most heavily defended in South America. Russian-made S-300 missile batteries scan the sky. Radar systems sweep the horizon every 4 seconds. But tonight, the screens remain black. A glitch? A hack? Or something far more sophisticated? In the darkness, 3 modified stealth Blackhawks glide silently toward the Fuerte Tiuna military complex. They aren't there to destroy it. They are there to extract a single package. Inside the master suite of the presidential residence, a man wakes up. He is 63 years old, heavyset, with a trademark mustache that has been the face of Venezuelan power for 13 years. Nicolás Maduro. He reaches for the bedside phone to call his palace guard. The line is dead. He reaches for his pistol. It's too late. 6 figures in tactical gear fill the room. No shouting, no chaos, just the distinct click of handcuffs. For over a decade, the United States Department of Justice had a $15 million price tag on this man's head. They called him a dictator. They called him a usurper. But the charge that finally brought him down wasn't politics, it was business. According to the superseding indictment unsealed in New York, Nicolás Maduro wasn't just running a country, he was the CEO of the Cartel of the Suns, a criminal enterprise that turned an entire nation's military into a drug-trafficking service. This wasn't a heist of money from a vault, this was the heist of a nation's sovereignty. How did a former bus driver dismantle a wealthy democracy, turn it into a personal ATM for cocaine profits, and evade the world's most powerful intelligence agencies for so long? And what changed on that humid night in January 2026 to leave him defenseless? To understand the capture, you have to understand the machine he built. Caracas, 2013. Hugo Chávez dies. The charismatic firebrand is gone. In his place steps Nicolás Maduro. He doesn't have the charm. He doesn't have the oil prices. The economy begins to freefall. But Maduro had a problem. To stay in power, you need the loyalty of the military. And loyalty is expensive. With oil revenues crashing, he couldn't pay the generals with state funds anymore. So he offered them a different currency. Permission. This is the birth of the Cartel de los Soles, the Cartel of the Suns, named after the gold stars on the generals' epaulets. Maduro's innovation was simple and terrifying. He didn't fight the drug trade, he nationalized it. He gave top military commanders control over ports, borders, and airspace. If you were a general loyal to the regime, you were granted the franchise rights to move cocaine through your sector. The National Guard didn't just inspect cargo, they loaded the bricks themselves. By 2020, the DOJ estimated that 250 metric tons of cocaine were transiting Venezuela annually. We're talking about $30 billion in street value. While the Venezuelan people starved, losing an average of 19 pounds of body weight in a single year due to food shortages, the inner circle was feasting. And at the center of it all was the first combatant, Maduro's wife, Celia Flores, and her nephews. The cracks began to show with the narco-nephews case years earlier. They were caught in Haiti trying to sell 800 kilograms of coke to undercover DEA agents. They thought they were untouchable because they carried diplomatic passports. They were wrong. But Maduro learned from their mistake. He became paranoid. He stopped traveling to friendly nations. He surrounded himself with Cuban intelligence officers, renowned for their spycraft. He purged anyone who looked at him sideways. He built a fortress of fear. But he made one critical miscalculation. He assumed that greed buys loyalty forever. By late 2025, the Venezuelan economy had not just collapsed, it had ceased to function. The sanctions were biting. The Russian and Chinese loans had dried up. The generals, the very men Maduro had enriched, were getting restless. Their bank accounts in Europe were frozen. Their families couldn't travel to Miami or Madrid. They were kings in a cage. The U.S. State Department saw the opening. They quietly whispered a new offer to the inner circle. Give us the king, and you get to keep some of the kingdom. December 2025. A high-ranking official within the Sabin, Venezuela's intelligence police, makes contact with a CIA handler in Curaçao. He offers the one thing the Americans have wanted for a decade: the security codes to the presidential palace and the schedule of the Russian air defense rotations. The price? Immunity, a new identity, and a life outside the cage. The deal was struck. The intel was verified. The trap was set. But capturing a sitting head of state is a geopolitical nightmare. If it goes wrong, it's an act of war. It has to be precise, it has to be surgical, and it has to be undeniable. The planners at the Pentagon called it Operation Simón Bolívar. The irony was intentional. They were going to liberate the man who claimed to be the liberator's heir. The timeline was tight. The Russian advisors who managed the radar systems did a shift change at 0200. There was a 90-second window where the system rebooted for diagnostics. 90 seconds to fly a strike team into the heart of a hostile capital. If they missed the window, the S-300s would light them up. If the informant was lying, they were flying into an ambush. The pilots checked their instruments. The coastline of Venezuela appeared as a dark mass on the horizon. The countdown began. Green light. I repeat, green light. The die was cast. The heist of the century was underway. But getting in was the easy part. Getting the package out of a city of 3 million people, that's where things could go very, very wrong. Caracas, 2:14 a.m. The extraction team is on the ground at the Miraflores Palace. They have the target. Nicolás Maduro is zip-tied, hooded, and wearing noise-canceling headphones to keep him disoriented. He is heavier than they expected. It takes 2 operators to hustle him across the manicured lawn. But then, the silence breaks. A perimeter patrol, not briefed on the stand-down order given by the traitorous general, spots the extraction team. An AK-47 opens up. Rounds ping off the armored fuselage of the helicopter. This wasn't in the plan. The team returns fire with suppressed carbines, dropping the spotlight. Load up! Load up! The bird lifts off, heavy and sluggish, swinging dangerously close to the palace trees. They are in the air, but they aren't safe. The gunshot has alerted the loyalist factions. Across Caracas, radios crackled to life. Incursion at the palace. The S-300 radar systems reboot. The screen glows amber. They see the heat signatures. 3 unauthorized aircraft exiting the city, heading north toward the Caribbean. A terrifying command is shouted in the air defense control room. Fire! The operator mashes the fire button. Nothing. The system is locked out. The CIA's Cyber Warfare Division, operating from a bunker in Florida, had injected a logic bomb into the network hours earlier. For the next 10 minutes, the most advanced air defense system in South America is nothing more than expensive lawn furniture. The helicopters clear the coastline. They are over international waters. 3:30 a.m. Nicolás Maduro steps onto the deck of the USS Gerald R. Ford. He is stripped of his tactical restraints and placed in a brig cell. A federal agent reads him his rights in Spanish. The man who ruled by decree, who imprisoned opponents without trial, is now being processed by the very legal system he spent years mocking. By sunrise, the news breaks. The world wakes up to a vacuum. In Venezuela, the streets are eerily quiet. People are waiting to see if the military will retaliate, but the retaliation never comes. Why? Because the Cartel of the Suns was a business, not a religion. With the CEO gone, the board of directors, the generals, were busy scrambling to cut their own deals. The structure collapsed instantly. April 2026. The trial begins. The United States versus Nicolás Maduro Moros. It is the most high-profile trial since El Chapo. But this is different. This is a head of state. The prosecution lays out the case. They don't just talk about drugs. They talk about the food for cocaine scheme. Prosecutors reveal the clap boxes, the government food subsidies that millions of Venezuelans relied on to survive. They present evidence that the food was bought at inflated prices from shell companies owned by Maduro's inner circle, used to launder drug money. The starving population wasn't a tragedy of socialism, it was a necessary feature of the money laundering cycle. Then the star witnesses take the stand. His own generals, the men he trusted, the men he enriched. They testify one by one. The verdict takes less than 3 days. Guilty on all counts: narcoterrorism, conspiracy to import cocaine, possession of machine guns. The sentence? Life in prison at ADX Florence, the Supermax. He will spend 23 hours a day in a concrete box, neighbors with El Chapo and terrorists. The man who lived in a palace will die in a cell the size of a parking space. The capture of Nicolás Maduro proved a brutal truth about modern dictatorships. Maduro thought he was protected by an army. He forgot that an army of mercenaries has no loyalty, only a price. And on January 3, 2026, the United States simply paid the bill.